Okay, moving forward, this is basically, let me just come back up here. So week 10, we're looking at image upload and display. We're going to throw in some 2D graphics manipulation because, hey, if you got pictures, you might as well make them better, right? We'll also wrap up the week looking at cookies and how we can use them for member values, things like page size and things like that. Okay, so that's our bit of work to do. Of course, you're working on A, B, and C of project part 3, which is due on Friday. So we're continuing on our file upload effort. In fact, even in my copy paste file here, I have a few notes there, but just the importance of working with pictures is obvious, right? Modern websites, they're very graphically oriented. So as I say here, fortunately, images are just files, right? So we've already done a lot of work on uploading files, and we'll see that that can carry over to this to a great extent. So I've got a little copy paste file. And notice that we're going to start off, we're using the exact same classes for handling uploaded files. Now, you don't have to. You could make different ones, right? If you don't want to store all uploaded files in the same table in the database, that's fine. You can separate it out into separate ones. But, I just wanted to show you that you can continue to use the file content and uploaded file exactly as we have, right? What we do next, well, I might as well get into Visual Studio and do it. So I've got version 9.9 that I posted last week, and we're starting with that. So just coming over here to models then. I want to mention here, this is interesting because remember we actually did create, bad David, I have it in doctor document. Remember we created both doctor and patient document, and we saw that we actually had a foreign key, nullable, of course, foreign keys for both in our uploaded file table. Right? We're going to see we're going to actually expand on that. And you might be afraid, oh, well, we already have an entity here with patient ID and patient, right? And you're going to see that's something similar to what we're about to do. Okay, so we already have our file content, right? And we have our uploaded file, and that's good. We're going to keep on using them. So what I'll do add now is I'm going to add a class for our patient photo, right? Profile picture basically for the patient, but I figured patient photo was a reasonable name. Okay, and it's going to be almost exactly the same. We're going to inherit, right, from uploaded photo or uploaded file, sorry. And then I have the exact same too. Oh, I forgot my display name. So actually I should fix that in my copy paste file. I'll do that. Right, just as we had over here, right? Here for a patient document, I have a patient photo. So you might think, oh, well, my goodness, isn't this going to cause confusion because I'm going to have the exact same uh, names here for these properties, patient ID and patient, right? So how can our uploaded file table have two different foreign keys, both named patient ID? Well, we'll see what happens. The system is pretty darn smart in order to handle all of this. Okay, so we have our new class to hold that. Now, obviously, we have to come to the patient, and we'll add a new property. I usually put it down here where these other foreign key related properties are. Now, of course, this is a 1 to 1, right? So instead of an I collection, we have a single patient photo. Okay, and then that takes care of the 1 to 0 or 1 relationship. By the way, I have a note in the copy paste file there, just a little bit further down. Where are we here? That if you really want to implement a true 1 to 1 instead of a 1 to 0 or 1, then in the constructor for patient, we could throw in this. And what would happen is as you define a new patient, we create a new patient photo object, right? Now this is a little different behavior with these other two here where we're creating empty hash sets. Well, those are collections of objects, but with being empty, there's no actual objects in them. So this would be a little different. This would actually force the creation of a patient photo record every time we make a new patient. Hence, we get a true one-to-one. Don't recommend it in this case. We would only usually go to that degree if there was some information we were going to automatically want to be storing in there or guaranteed to be in there. But there's nothing inside our patient photo record other than the foreign key, well, the key values, right? There's no other data being stored. So don't do this in this case. But I just want to show how easy it is if you're ever in a situation where you really have to make sure that for every one of these records, we create this dependent record as well. Okay. So there we go. So I've got my uploaded file. I've added the property to the patient. And the next thing, of course, is to actually go in and make our DB set so we can work with it. So I'll come here to data, our context, and we'll add a DB set here. Okay. All right. You know what? While I'm here, it's not in my copy paste file, but I'm going to make another one just to really illustrate how this inheritance system works. So DB set of patient, P-A-T, patient document, right? Named, and patient documents. Planning ahead, we don't have anything implemented yet to actually be able to upload documents related to a patient, but we're thinking we're probably going to, so I might as well put the DB set in now. I'm doing this to show you that we got two different dependent entities related back to the same patient, both with the same foreign keys, right? But it won't be a problem. The system can handle it. Okay, so let's do our migration and so on. So I'll just save everything, do a quick build, make sure I didn't mess up in my copy paste or anything. And build succeeded. Okay, so I'm going to close all this and let's get our common commands up. Right, I'm going to need that. Better delete my migration, my medical office migrations, and I'll delete the database. Oh, I already have it deleted here. I think I did that for uploading purposes because it recreates it anyway as we run it. Okay, so I'm ready to go. I can just get my package manager console up, run my command to create the migration. And while that's cooking, I'll just grab the update database. Might as well do that as well. Oh, did I not paste? I guess I didn't actually copy it, did I? Control C, Control V. There we go. I got it that time. Okay. All right, so let's come back here. I just want to point out what's happening. Just even looking inside our code for our migration, we'll be able to see it here. There's patients. Nothing really changes there much. Okay. I'm looking for our uploaded files. Here we go. Create table uploaded files, right? Look at that. So we have 3 now nullable integer foreign keys. ID, patient ID, and look at that, patient photo, patient ID. So that's how the system worked around. Hey, it couldn't have 2 columns with the exact same name, patient ID, so it just qualified the next one to add with the actual class name as well, right? And notice all 3 of them are set up here as foreign keys. They're nullable, right? They all have cascade delete, which is what we want in a situation like this, and away we go. Pretty clever, isn't it? All right, so let me just get out of this. And we don't need that anymore either. So let's go start working on the actual user interface. So I can start with the create process. So I'm going to need a couple things. I'm going to need the patient's controller. Might as well get that open. And then for views, I'll need to access the patient view. So I'm going to start with create. Okay, so here, I haven't done it before. I like to remember to do this as soon as I think of it. I'm just going to move the validation summary above that first row just so that it can have the full width of the screen in order to show any error messages and so on that it wants. Okay. And again, I'm just going to bring over our method for our form to make sure we're including the enclosure types multi-part form data. Okay, good. Now we need somehow to get a, I'm going to put it right down here, maybe at the bottom of the first column. Okay. I'm going to throw it in here, just a div with the input. Okay, file is type, or type is file, sorry. Now this is a little different code. What I'm using this time in our last example, our last demo with the doctor documents, I just used the vanilla HTML styling, right? Here I'm taking advantage of something that's a custom styling for file inputs that's available in our version of Bootstrap we're using, right? So notice we give the actual class, this form group custom file, right? This is just because it kind of gets rid of the label. It'll put the label inside the sort of text box looking thing. So I'm just putting a margin at the top and a margin at the bottom just to space it out. Okay, so the label, right? We have to put this Bootstrap class custom file label in here, and then we say class custom file input, right? And that enough will work. However, it doesn't give the label right inside, sort of the name of the file right inside the label at all until we do this. So I'm going to come down here. There's a little bit of extra JavaScript required. Now, if I didn't already have this script type equals text JavaScript, I just have to add that, an opening and closing script tag with that annotation in it, and put my new script in it. However, since I already have this, I don't need to make a separate script block. I can just come in here and put this is right from the documentation on the Bootstrap site. Okay, this if we want the name to appear after we've selected in our custom file input, that's what this does. It strips out the name and shows it inside the little text box, since we don't actually have a separate label or anything going along with it. Okay, so that's it. We basically just put the input in. That's the main thing, and set the enclosure type. All right, we'll just see the difference in styling using this Bootstrap feature. Okay, so let's come back to the controller. We're finishing the create process. Nothing to do in the get here, because of course we just bring up blank records, right? Okay, but I do need to have some additional parameters here. So I'm just going to come here, press enter, right? So we have our selected options. And after that, all I really need is the iForm file. Now here a difference is, unlike our documents where we had our input was set to multiple, where we could select multiple files, right? Something I should have pointed out. What we're doing here is different. All we're doing is there's no multiple equals multiple, right? So we will only be able to select a single file at a time. So we don't need a whole collection. All I need here for the picture, right, is a single iForm file, because we can only pick one anyway. It makes sense. We're just uploading a single picture as the profile picture of the patient, right? Okay. So, and what we're going to do then is, I kind of skipped it. I went out of order of my copy paste file. I have my copy paste putting the actual method in first. So maybe I'll do that before I go on. Just another method and a little utility thing specific to the controller. But I maybe put it down here near populate drop down lists and so on. Maybe I'll put it right underneath all these. Okay, so here's my add picture, asynchronous, right? I pass in the patient, and in this case, just a single picture, right? The picture, iForm file. Notice that's also the name, right? That relates right back to our input. Again, just checking that it's not null, because if it is, we're done, right? And we grab the content type, the length. Okay, I changed my test here a little bit. This made more sense to me just to make sure we have a MIME type and the file length. Actually, we could combine, just check for image in the MIME type instead of just checking emptiness, but oh well. There's an old saying, early optimization is the root of all evil. And I was worrying too much about making sure everything is the most efficient way to do it, can get in the way of actually getting the job done, of getting an app up and running. Optimization is a good thing to think about later, and if you can plan ahead to be optimized, that's good too, but don't spend too long worrying about it. Okay, here we are. So I just, if we actually have an image, so that's something different from our code we did last week. I'm testing. If the MIME type doesn't contain image, then I don't want to save it. It can't possibly be a picture of the patient, right? It could be an Excel spreadsheet or something. Well, that wouldn't work very well, would it? Okay, so it has to have image somewhere inside the MIME type, or it's not a photograph, right? So this is pretty much the same code that we had before, right? Getting the file name just in case it's useful to have the file name at some point in time. And then last but not least, patient photo, okay, is we just assign that to the patient photo property of our patient, and we're done. Okay, so let's come back up, way up where we left off here in the create, right? So we have the picture, okay, which is also the name of the input on the view. And all we have to do is come down here inside the if it checks validation. And all I need to do is call my method, right? That's it. Just call it right here. Asynchronously, we'll wait for it. Add picture, passing the patient and the picture. Bada bing. And that's it. We're done. Now, of course, the challenge is with pictures, we want to display them on the screen. So I'm going to go right away to the views here. If I come to the index view, now this is something you may or may not actually do in the real world, right? Pulling up pictures and showing them, when you have multiple records, obviously you're going to greatly increase the amount of data you're transferring over to get the page up and visible. So you may not do this, but for now I want to because I want to be able to see the pictures right away. So what I'm going to do is I can make a new column, and I'm going to throw that right at the beginning, right? So I don't need a heading because it'll be pretty obvious when there's pictures there what they're for. So I don't really need to have a heading. But here then I will make a new table data tag right in here, and I'm going to put this code in. Now we'll talk about it once I get it in place. So just remember that our data is actually stored as a byte array. Kind of messed up my formatting there. Remember, you can always come down here under Edit to Advanced and say Format Document, right? That fixes all the indentation. Okay, so the item, as we go through row by row, is each patient. Okay, so it'll have a patient photo property. Now, some people will have a photo and some won't. So we make sure that there actually is one, right? So it's not null, right? So if there is a photo, then we can go in and to the file content. Remember, we'll have to make sure we include both the photo and the file content and grab the content. There's an extra check to make sure it's not null. There's no way it should be, but just in case, and that the MIME type contains image, right? And it's just a double check, really. Probably could live without it, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, so then what we do, this is the interesting part. So here's the patient photo, file content. Dot content is the actual property that stores the byte array, right? So what we do is we take the byte array itself, convert it to a base 64 string. We store that here, and then this is kind of neat. The image source, okay, is a special string where we just take that base 64 string. You have to put data colon, right? Then the MIME type, so that the browser can know what it is. Is it a JPEG? Is it a PNG file? Is it a bitmap? A GIF, whatever, right? What type of image is it? So we build the MIME type, and then we tell it base 64. And then here is where our string holding that base 64 string version of our byte array fits in place. And that's it, right? That will actually then set that as the image source, and we're embedding the data for the image right into the page at that point. So there's not an extra trip back to the server to get, to download an actual graphic, right? It actually is inserted right into the HTML of the page. And good practice, we should have an alt and a title. That's for accessibility, right? So if people are using screen readers, they're blind or whatever, or have vision issues, right? At least they can find out with the screen reader that this image, this object on the screen is a profile picture of, might as well show the full name. Okay, and that will be the first column in our index. All right, now I'm going to do something similar. Oh, notice here in the image tag itself, right? I have some attributes at the end. Okay, I'm setting a max width and max height. In other words, no matter how big the image is, I don't want it bigger than this. Otherwise, my table will just look really, like some would be bigger than others and so on. If it's a little smaller, that's not a problem, right? But that way we set a maximum. Now you might be thinking right away, aha, what if it's a massively huge picture I've uploaded and I'm shrinking it way down to this size? Well, then I'm wasting a lot of time throwing a lot of data back and forth just to show a little thumbnail, right? Well, we're going to talk about that more later on. So I'll keep you on the edge of your seat in anticipation of dealing with that issue. But for now, just bear with me. Okay, we're going to go to details. And here I'm going to, above the description list, I figured I might as well show a nice big version, okay, larger than I would show in each row on the index. So I'm going to put it under this horizontal rule, because I actually have a HR again at the end, so it can be between the two. It's virtually the same code, right? So we're going to do the same thing, convert the byte array to a base 64 string, which works very well as with a couple of extra attributes thrown in there as a source for a picture with the data for it embedded right in the page. Difference though is I'm going to allow a larger version, right, of the actual image itself. Okay, so we can have a nice bigger version of the picture, assuming that it is bigger, right? We won't make it bigger, but it'll just allow it to be bigger. All right, so that's good for the index and the details. Now we might as well deal with the edit process and then we'll wrap up. So let me get the edit view, right? So once again, very important just with any type of file upload, we have to put those extra attributes in the opening form tag, method is post, enclosure type, right? Again, I'm going to move my summary up above the row. Oops, I didn't mean to put the extra. Oh well. All right. So here, again, unlike the index, we're focusing on one record at a time, one patient in this case. So I might as well show a nice large version of the image at the top of the page. So when they're editing a patient record, they can have a nice big picture of the patient at the top, right? So I'll throw a div up here that will go above that row. All right, so I'm just giving it a fairly good bit of room to show, okay? The patient photo, again, I check if it's not null, exactly the same kind of code as we had before, right? The size of the image, I'm going with the same restriction as I had on the details, right? And what we're doing those differently in edit is we're also adding a checkbox. Okay, so this is just a little bit of Bootstrap to give it a certain look that's consistent with the Bootstrap look of the rest of the page. Okay, class, this div here is a form check label, and form check input are the classes involved. So it just gives a specific styling to match the styling of the rest of the page. But basically it's a checkbox, right? It has a name. The name is check remove image. So the idea is I'm going to say, hey, check this box if you want to remove the picture. Okay. So that's the other case with an edit. You might be replacing the picture that's there or just removing it from the patient. Okay. So we still need to be able to, if I want to replace it, right, put the same kind of file upload. Okay. So I'll throw that in down here. Again, at the bottom of the first column, I think seems to work fairly well. A bit of margins in order to make it fit properly in the overall view. And once more, if I want to have that nice bootstrap effect of the file name showing inside the control, I have to have that little snippet of script that's right off of the tutorial site. Okay, so that's the view. Let's come back to the controller, right? Okay, so inside the edit, we're going to be dealing with this, but I'll come back to it in a second. Let's do the post first, okay? So here's where we not only need the picture, the iForm file for the picture, but now we have our new checkbox as well, right? So actually I should press enter and bring this down so we can see it easily, right? So we have the ID, the selected options, our checkbox to remove the image, and our picture, right? If they've chosen a new picture to update, okay, the profile picture of the patient, right? Okay. So all we really need to do in the logic here then is right before we save inside this try, makes sense to put it here, is I'm just going to put a simple decision structure based on that checkbox. So if we've checked off that remove image, right, if it's not null, then we just set the patient update, patient photo equal to null. And that's it. By setting it to null, when we save the patient, it will actually delete the existing photograph if there is one, which assuming there would be because we don't even show that a checkbox at the top. It only appears along with the picture, right? So it would just actually delete the record for the photograph out of the database. And of course, because of cascade delete, it not only deletes the uploaded file, it deletes the file content as well, right? And that's it, it'll be gone. Otherwise, we just replace the picture with the new one that was uploaded. Now, of course, if they didn't upload one, maybe they're just removing it and not replacing it, no problem. As soon as it checks and sees there's nothing in the picture, it'll just jump right back to here. Okay, so that's it, except for one final step. There are four different, at least four, when we think one, two, three, four, five different spots where we have link queries right now that don't get the data for the picture, right? So we need to update each one with the proper includes, right? So I'm just going to do that along. I'll start at the top. Obviously, in our index view, if we want to be able to show, okay, those pictures for each patient, I'll have to come in here and add a include for the patient photo, then include the file content, right? Because the file content, of course, actually has the blob itself, right? The huge amount of data for the picture itself. Okay, so we'll do that in index. Come down here to details. Remember on the details page, I wanted to show it as well. So I can do the same thing here. And actually, let me correct that. There's just four spots where I need to add the includes, the index, the details, and then both the get and post for edit. So here I'm in the edit get. So anywhere in here, doesn't really matter the order. I'll just throw in the includes here for the patient photo and the file content. And then the same thing here in the post. Okay, that should be it. So let's just give her a try. Ah, good build error. Good chance that I was hurrying, right? So I had a phone call there that threw me off. It was just about booking a flu shot. But anyway, see, I threw by accident. I pasted in between an include and a then include, right? So it is important that we don't do that. That's why I usually these days try to do it on one line, right? And that way I think it visually makes it more clear that this then include belongs, so to speak, to the previous include. So I'm going to try to remember to do it like that. Okay? Yeah, I can't throw it in the middle because then include doesn't make sense unless it follows the one you're including. Okay, whew, now I should be able to build. Hopefully I didn't do that in more than one place. All right, now we're ready to give her a shot. Okay, we're up and running, so let me just try, I don't know, pick Fred here. So we can see we added this picture file. So it's a different look using the Bootstrap, right? I can browse, pick a picture of Fred, and save it. Notice it shows the name inside here because of that little bit of extra JavaScript we put in. And there we go. So there's Fred. Now if we go to details, you see it's a larger image, right? And we can see all the details there. Back to the list. Let's edit. And notice I can check to remove the image and just save. And there, Fred is gone, right? Of course, I could have actually, if I had chosen the wrong image, then, oops, that's not Fred's image. I'll edit. I don't check to remove. I just browse to find the correct one. And away we go. All right. So you can feel free to, update all of them if you want. So you can find your own pictures. There's Wilma and so on. So Jane, I don't know. I don't really have a picture, but if I want to put a placeholder in there, I think I have just a placeholder profile, right? And of course, as we step through, oh, here's Barney. Let me just get Barney. Right? You can go forward and back, and we see all the pictures there. And as I said, we get full-size ones in edit and details, and away we go. All right, so that basically finishes the demo. Hopefully you found that was kind of fun and interesting.